I'm thinking about free will and determinism, and I know it's a bit of a hoary topic, but I do keep getting into it again. I don't know why, but I think I'm trying to find the faults in my thinking really more than anything else, because obviously I don't believe in, well, maybe it's not obvious, but I don't believe in any kind of soul or any kind of principle that exists within human beings on some level that acts as an initiator of that kind of intentionality that we think of as free will. And without that, the alternative seems to be a kind of clockwork universe in which we appear just as a single cog. So I suppose I'm just trying to think through the implications of that, or try to find faults in the clunkiness of my own thinking really. And where I've got to with it so far is just in thinking about, you know, what am I imagining when I'm imagining a deterministic universe? If I don't like the idea of free will for the reasons I've mentioned, then the alternative seems to be some kind of determinism, a universe in which I'm embedded and which operates according to the physical laws, including causality, those kind of things. But what am I actually thinking of? And I can't help thinking in Newtonian terms about this. I guess because I'm a middle-sized object moving at middle speed, as Richard Dawkins says, and almost the entirety of my embodied experience is Newtonian. I'm thinking in Newtonian terms, and I kind of want to stay in that, because I don't, you know, there's a lot of babble I think talked about quantum physics in this regard, and I don't really want to go there. But I think I would only find reasonably satisfying an account which appealed to the intuitions that I have, and my intuitions, I think, like most people's intuitions, are pretty much Newtonian, or corresponding to folk physics, which is very similar to Newtonian physics. And for me, one of the paradigms of determinism, causality in Newtonian physics is a snooker table, or a pool table. I mean, that's how introductory physics classes in primary school or early years of secondary school are introduced usually. It's usually about snooker balls bumping into one another, and how that is, at least on a gross level, an inherently deterministic causal system, completely predictable, in a way that we would find troubling, I think, if we were to regard ourselves like that. If I think of myself as a snooker ball in a game of snooker, and my whole life is a series of cannons and reboundings against other balls and against cushions and occasional drops into pockets, I would find a problem with that, because that for me at least, that captures the kind of well, it just doesn't capture intuitively what it feels like to be alive and awake. It's too mechanistic. So what I'm thinking now is in terms of not discrete systems, but systems within systems. Because I used to play quite a bit of snooker actually. I used to go to Riley's Snooker Club in Accrington. And in those snooker, and another one in Bolton actually, but in those snooker clubs, there's a lot of snooker tables, typically 10 or 12 snooker tables in the clubs I used to go to. And different games are happening on the different tables. And these cannons and reboundings and pocketings are happening on the different tables. And the whole room is subject to the same laws of physics. The whole room is subject to, even if you want to keep it within the realms of the Newtonian, the whole room is subject to Newtonian physics. There's a great kind of complex set of causal chains being inactivated right across the room, involving, of course, snooker balls and snooker cues, but also people and glasses of beer and cigarettes and those kind of things. But the activities on one table aren't part of the same subsystem as the activities on another table. So that whilst on one table these balls are completely predictable and completely follow the intuitive sort of systems of Newtonian physics, and on the table next to it, again those systems, there isn't an apparent connection between the two subsystems. Both tables are subject to the same overall set of principles. Nothing is stepping outside of the laws here, but the two systems, the two snooker tables, the two sets of players the various balls and the various bouncings of balls are taking place, at least at the level of their own operation, completely independently. Now, I don't know how that relates to determinism exactly. I don't know how the metaphor carries over, but it is allowing me to think a little bit, at least, in terms of, what sort of subsystems are going on in my body and in my cognition that kind of mirror that. Is there a sense in which my brain is a bit like a Riley snooker club, with lots of different modules, lots of different subroutines, lots of different snooker tables, all operating according to the same basic principles, and all perhaps even figuring within the same snooker league, and operating according to the same basic rules and regulations of snooker, but ultimately on a very profound level disconnected and operating according to their own parameters. It's not free will, it's multiplicity of determinism, parallel deterministic processes. It doesn't get us out of it. I still think it's deterministic ultimately, but given that we can only live in one subsystem at a time, it's going to feel, it's not going to feel deterministic. It's not going to feel like we're a ball on a snooker table. It's going to feel like we're a game of snooker being played alongside a lot of other games of snooker. And for me, that's more intuitively evident.